everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we'll be talking about a bit of a pre-box office breakdown because Black Widow had a massive 80% drop from week 1 to week 2, just looking at the Friday numbers, and this is an incredibly massive number. It is not completely insurmountable, so this is definitely not a guarantee that the film is going to be a financial loss. However, if this trend continues in the weekend, and if it only makes what it is projected to make this weekend, it's not looking all that great for this movie, and it kind of goes back to what I had said in the last week's box office breakdown about how you have to take into account these are pre-pandemic costs as far as production budget are concerned, as far as marketing is concerned, also adding on marketing costs that probably haven't even really been accounted yet, because we don't know how much extra they had to spend on marketing for this film after having to delay it by several months, even years really at this point. But at the same time, that the results, as far as what it is getting, are far below what the standard box office would be for a typical Marvel film, or even for a typical major blockbuster film as well. So before diving into these numbers, though, please make sure that you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure that you have that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video goes live on the channel. So, just want to make the first thing very clear. I'm not saying that Black Widow is a flop. I'm not saying that it is going to flop. I'm saying that based on these early numbers in the second week drop-off, the chances of it losing money have just grown exponentially. I was saying even this last weekend that if it has a pretty modest 50% drop from week 1 to week 2, hey, that would actually be pretty good even for pandemic numbers, even for how much that this movie had cost. But having it 80% from Friday to Friday is already not a good start. And even our friend Scotty Boy Mendelsohn over at Forbes.com has already kind of admitted to this fact as well, that it's not looking all that great for this movie. And looking further ahead, if even Black Widow, a character that most people would argue is relatively popular, or was relatively popular back when she was alive and relevant, when this film should have come out probably during phase 2 at some point, that if this film is somehow not going to make profit, or at the very least make very minimal profit, how in the world can anyone expect a film like Shang-Chi or a film like The Eternals, which cost just as much to make with characters that no one knows about? I think that is something that people aren't really considering. Now, one might argue that maybe those movies will get a China release, which is what Black Widow has not. But, as I've mentioned before, just because a movie gets $215 million from China doesn't mean that it keeps all of it. Again, that number actually came from Fast 9, and Fast 9 only got $50 million actually from that massive over $200 million mark, because guess what? The rest of it went to the communists in China. Thank you, Fast and Furious 9 franchise, for giving tons of money to China. Obviously, there's other franchises that have done it before as well. But let's go ahead and dive into this article and talk about what is likely going to happen at the end of this weekend. So it says here, Black Widow got slammed by Space Jam: A New Legacy on Friday night, which should be embarrassing for everyone involved, because from everything I've heard, Space Jam 2 is garbage. And even though I really kind of want to be able to cover that film and want to be able to actually give an official review, it means I have to watch it, and I really don't want to. Based on the images from the film, based on the fact that I cannot stand LeBron James as a person in general. So who knows if that's going to ever actually happen or not. But being beat by Space Jam 2, not a good look. Taking a brutal 79.7% drop from its $39.5 million opening day. The Scarlett Johansson starring prequel earned $8 million yesterday, bringing its 8-day total to $113 million, that is domestically. That drop is about on par with the 81% tumble, get these movies, Batman v Superman, and the 83% drop for Dark Phoenix. Regardless of your thoughts about the DCEU or Zack Snyder, I think most people will admit that the theatrical edition of BVS was not a very good film, and that audiences in general were not big fans of it. Massive drop-off, I think, was a very big indication of that. And also, when you break down the numbers of that movie, it was not a major financial success based on the total numbers that it made. I think it was the most successful of all the films involved, but seeing how much money it lost over time, hey, it's kind of hard to tell at this point. I think it may have made some profit, but that movie cost an insane amount of money to make and should have made a lot more of a return on its investment than what it actually ended up making by the end of its run. I can't quite remember for sure whether or not that film made its money back or not, based on how much it cost and how much they got back. However, it also talks about here Dark Phoenix, which we all know Dark Phoenix was indeed a massive box office flop. It says here it'll likely earn around $24.6 million for the weekend, which would be around a 70% drop from its $80 million launch. Again, that's worse than the 62% drop on the same weekend in 2017-2018 of Spider-Man Homecoming after the $117 million debut, and Ant-Man and the Wasp after a $76 million debut. That, for now, 70% drop would be ahead of only Jonah Hex, Hulk, Hellboy 2, Dark Phoenix, and Steel among all big deal comic book movies. Again, that is not a very good list of movies to be named along with, and the fact that it is doing worse than other films, similar weekends, similar franchises, I think definitely indicates that this film is not nearly as strong as a lot of people are trying to push for. There's a number that I'm actually much more interested in, and that is the total worldwide box office. It says it will still have around 130 million domestic and over under 265 million worldwide by tomorrow night. And so what Scotty Boy Mendelsohn is saying is that this movie, by the end of the weekend, by the end of week 2, will be at $265 million. I crunched the numbers on this early. I don't have them up on the website because these are, again, complete estimates. But if the movie reaches exactly 265 million for the entire second weekend, the projections then for this film would essentially be either it's going to lose around 40 to 60 million dollars or make maybe 13 to 14 million dollars. Like, that's basically the range on what it would mean if the film actually makes that amount of money. But notice how that could be less or it could be more. So as I said, I'm not going to be able to make actual predictions until we get the official week 2 totals, but this is not a good position to be in. I mean, as I said, this is a movie that was given the same amount of money that any other film would have been given during non-pandemic times, but it is doing numbers that are far below what would be expected for a film like this, obviously because we are in pandemic times. But that is the reason why I'm just so amazed and so, flabbergasted that Disney is trying to spin this as hard as they can, and there are so many Disney shills trying to spin this as hard as they can as somehow a major victory for this movie, when even if the film makes over 265, there is still a chance the film loses a massive amount of money because it would need to have massive, strong legs for the rest of the summer in order for it to be able to make the money that it needs to. Even if it was over 265, the range would still be somewhere in the negative at the low end and somewhere low in the positive on the high end. Now, some are saying, well, you're not including the Disney Plus numbers. We don't know what the Disney Plus numbers are. They can claim it's $60 million worldwide. They can tell us anything they want. The fact remains they've never done that for any film before. They still, even though they've released this, haven't told us, oh, okay, you're telling us this number. How much money then did Cruella do for you? How much money did Raya and the Last Dragon do for you? These are all box office flops based on the box office numbers that we have. If you care so much about telling investors that your films are making money, don't you think that you would kind of reveal all of those numbers too? The fact that they haven't makes it very skeptical, not to mention Disney has never really been a very trustworthy company when it comes to their numbers and when it comes to reporting their numbers as far as the box office is concerned. There's a reason why they're notorious for, during the regular box office season, before the pandemic times, they were always the last of the major studios to put their numbers out there. So normally it was around like 11 a.m. Eastern time, all the studios would report their weekend numbers, and usually if it was a big release and it was a number that wasn't looking that great, or they weren't quite sure how the number was going to look, they would hold off until maybe noon or 1 p.m. of releasing those numbers. Disney is notorious for playing around with numbers in that way, so I don't trust their number that they're claiming Disney Plus Premiere did in this way. But here is, I guess, kind of the summary of what we have so far. This is a massive drop-off. From a Friday to Friday, 80% drop is nothing to snuff at. Does this mean the film is doomed? No. And even Scotty Boy Mendelsohn is able to say, hey, this is not a very good drop. However, a film like Suicide Squad was somehow able to recover by having, stronger legs past the second week that actually ended up leading it to making, being one of the biggest films of the summer. Now, when you look at the actual total number that Suicide Squad had made by the end of its run, it is, I think, still something that they should be concerned about, because the number is far below the number that Black Widow would need in order to make its money back. And so it's going to be interesting, nonetheless, to follow these numbers. As of right now, again, as of the last box office update, right now, I want to say Black Widow is up to around $191 million or so being reported. But again, those numbers will update as we get more coming in tomorrow, especially, which puts the film around negative $204 million. So the number to look at based on these numbers and based on the crunching that I've done so far is going to be this potential worldwide number. 265 million. So be on the lookout tomorrow. How close to this number will Black Widow be? If Black Widow is under this number, it means that there's a very good chance it's a guaranteed financial flop. If it's at this number or above, it's very much kind of a 50-50 chance of whether or not the film's going to make up its money or not. And then obviously this is not including other revenue streams. This is not including Disney Plus, because again, the numbers that they've given us are not really trustworthy, just because of the nature of Disney itself. But things aren't looking all that great, especially for the future of their franchises with films like The Eternals and films like Shang-Chi, which I don't see how, if a film like Black Widow is going to underperform in this way, I don't really see how those films with unknown characters and unknown worlds and really subpar marketing to this point are going to be able to somehow be able to match one of the favorite characters in the MCU, whose film obviously came out 5 years too late or so. But what are your thoughts about this? Do you think that it's going to be able to pull it off, that it's going to be able to have a not as bad drop-off, maybe 65 or 60% drop, and it's going to be fine? It's going to make more than $265 million? Or do you kind of like me think, I don't know, I think it's probably going to be pretty close, and even again, if it does get close to this number worldwide by the reporting of tomorrow's numbers, it still doesn't guarantee the film to make money. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, light up that fire button. It really does help out a lot. And if you want to track the box office, go to my website, ombreviews.com. Got tons of stuff over there with breakdowns, film reviews, the Raven Awards, nominees and winners from the past. If you want to find out more about that, there's information there about that. Also, all the live shows that I turn into podcasts. There's ways to follow that, social media, and also ways to donate onto the channel as well. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, go ahead, check out the website. The website itself is completely free. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my July Patreon and Subscribe Star members: Andrew Hoyle, Biffer de Hobbit, Brian P., Dion, Don Bruno de la Mancha, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Harold Francis, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toone, Jonathan Carney, Laura the Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, Tina B, and Tina Bojan. Thank you all very much for supporting me over on Patreon, and also to my Subscribe Star members: Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, John B, Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J. Ra the Beer Guru, and ZK Man. And I also want to make sure to shout out my Locals members. I am now available over at locals.com, and I've got 2 monthly supporters over there. The first of my local supporters is Goblin Squatch. Shout out to you, good sir. And also, I now have a second supporter over on locals.com, and that is Robert Barnes. Shout out to both of you very much. Thank you very much for supporting me on that new platform at the Keeper of the Bifrost level. If you want to find out more information about that, go check out my Locals page. You can find the link in the description, and it tells you everything that you would get in that Keeper of the Bifrost level, which is right now the only level available on that platform. And I also want to make sure to shout out any new Patreon members, and for right now, I want to shout out Mondo Spieler, who is my newest member over on Patreon. Thank you all very much for being here today. And if you want to have your name shouted out at the end of every single live stream and video on the channel, please make sure to check out the links in the description of ways that you can support me over on Patreon and Subscribestar as well. It gives you access to things like giveaways of Blu-rays, 4Ks, and digital codes. Also, access to a podcast that I do with John the Flickpick Flickinger, where we have a lot of fun. We also answer Q&A questions as well. And also you might get access to the Chosen of Valhalla level, which gives you access to a once-a-month podcast exclusively where I bring on you to the main channel with everyone else who is at the level, and we all just talk about movies, pop culture, and tons of fun stuff like that. And also, of course, Tina, who is the Empress of the Universe, is going to give us tons of reviews of movies and also maybe a couple of awesome rants here and there as well. So if that sounds fun to you, make sure you go ahead and check out those links. Again, you're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.